Hi, good evening, everyone. Tonight, I'm going to be reading you chapter 15 and 16 of Charlotte's Web. Chapter 15 is called The Crickets. The crickets sang in the grasses. They sang the song of summer's ending, a sad, monotonous song. Summer is over and gone, they sang, over and gone, over and gone. Summer is dying, dying. The crickets felt it was their duty to warn everybody that summertime cannot last forever. Even on the most beautiful days in the whole year, the days when summer's changing into fall, the crickets spread the rumor of sadness and change. Everybody heard the song of the crickets. Avery and Fern Arable heard it as they walked the dusty road, and they knew that school would begin soon. The young geese heard it, and they knew they'd never ever be little goslings again. Charlotte heard it, and she knew she didn't have much time left. Mrs. Zuckerman, at work in the kitchen, heard the crickets, and a sadness came over her too. Another summer gone, she sighed. At work, building a crate for Wilbur, Lurvy heard the song that he knew it was time to dig potatoes. Summer is over and gone, repeated the crickets. How many nights till frost, sang the crickets. Goodbye, summer, goodbye, goodbye. The sheep heard the crickets, and they felt so uneasy that they broke a hole in the pasture fence and wandered up into the field across the road. The gander discovered the hole, and he let his whole family through. They walked down to the orchard, and they ate all the apples that were on the ground. And a little maple tree in the swamp heard the cricket song and turned bright red with anxiety. Wilbur was now the center of attraction on the farm. Good food and regular hours were showing results. Wilbur was a pig that any man would be proud of. One day, more than 100 people came to stand at his yard and admire him. And Charlotte had written that word radiant, and Wilbur really looked radiant as he stood in the golden sunlight. Ever since the spider befriended him, he had done his best to live up to his reputation. When Charlotte's Web said some pig, Wilbur tried to look like some pig. When Charlotte's Web said terrific, Wilbur tried to look terrific. And now that the web said radiant, he did everything possible to make himself look radiant. It's not easy to look radiant, but Wilbur threw himself into it with a will. He would turn his head slightly, blink his long eyelashes, breathe deeply, and when his audiences grew bored, he'd spring into the air and do a backflip. At this, the crowd would yell and cheer. How's that for a pig? Mr. Zuckerman would ask. That pig is radiant. Some of Wilbur's friends in the barn worried for fear that all of this attention would go to his head and make him stuck up, but it never did. Wilbur was modest. Fame didn't spoil him. He still worried about some of the future. He could hardly believe that a mere spider could save his life. But sometimes at night he would have a really bad dream that men were coming to get him with knives and guns, but it was just a dream. In the daytime, he was usually happy and confident. No pig ever had truer friends, and he realized friendship is one of the most satisfying things in the world. Even the song of the crickets didn't make Wilbur too sad. He knew it was almost time for the county fair, and he was so looking forward to the trip. If he could distinguish himself at that fair and maybe win some prize money, he was sure that Zuckerman would let him live. Charlotte had worries of her own, but she kept quiet about them. And one morning, Wilbur asked her about the fair. You're going with me, aren't you, Charlotte? He said. Well, I don't know, said Charlotte. The fair comes at a bad time for me. I shall find it inconvenient to leave home even for a few days. Why? Asked Wilbur. I just don't want to leave my web. Too much going on here. Please come with me, said Wilbur. I need you, Charlotte. I can't go to the fair without you. You've got to come. No, said Charlotte. I believe I better stay home and see if I can't get some work done. What kind of work? Asked Wilbur. Egg laying. It's time I made an egg sack and filled it with eggs. I didn't know you could lay eggs, said Wilbur. Oh, sure, said the spider. I'm versatile. What does versatile mean? Full of eggs? Asked Wilbur. Oh, no, certainly not, said Charlotte. Versatile means that I can turn with ease from one thing to another. It means that I don't have to limit my activities to spinning webs and trapping flies and stunts like that. Well, why don't you come with me to the fairgrounds and lay your eggs there? It would be wonderful fun. Charlotte gave her web a twitch and watched it sway. I'm afraid not, she said. You don't know the first thing about egg laying, Wilbur. I can't arrange my family duties to suit the management of the county fair. When I get ready to lay eggs, I gotta lay eggs, fair or no fair. However, I don't want you to worry about it because you might lose weight. We'll leave it this way. I'll come to the fair if I possibly can." "Oh, good," said Wilbur. "I knew you wouldn't forsake me just when I needed you most." And all that day Wilbur stayed inside, taking life easy in the straw. Charlotte rested and ate a grasshopper. She knew she couldn't help Wilbur much longer. In a few days she'd have to drop everything, build the beautiful egg sack that would hold her eggs. Chapter 16, Off to the Fair. The night before the county fair, everyone went to bed early. Fern and Avery were in bed by 8, and Avery lay dreaming that the Ferris wheel stopped at the top. Fern lay dreaming she was getting sick on the swings. Lurvy was in bed at 8:30, dreaming that he was throwing baseballs at a cloth cat and winning a genuine Navajo blanket. And Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman were in bed by 9, and Mrs. Zuckerman was laying about getting a deep freeze unit, and Mr. Zuckerman was dreaming about Wilbur. He dreamt that Wilbur grew until he was 116 feet long and 92 feet high, and he won all the prizes at the fair and was covered in blue ribbons, even the end of his tail. Down in the barn cellar, the animals too went to sleep early, all except Charlotte. Tomorrow would be fair day, and every creature wanted to get up early to see Wilbur off on his great adventure. When morning came, everybody got up at daylight. The day was hot, and up the road at the Arable's house, Fern lugged a pail of hot water to her room so she could take a sponge bath. She put on her prettiest dress, because she knew she got to see boys at the fair. And Mrs. Arable, she had to scrub the back of Avery's neck and get him all suited up. Avery could put on some clean jeans and a clean shirt. And Mr. Arable dressed, ate breakfast, and went out to polish his truck because he was going to drive everybody to the fair, even Wilbur. Bright and early, Lurvy put clean straw in Wilbur's crate, lifted it into the pig pen. The crate was green, and in gold letters it said, "Zuckerman's famous pig." Charlotte had her web looking fine for the occasion, and Wilbur ate his breakfast slowly, trying to look radiant. In the kitchen, Mrs. Zuckerman suddenly made an announcement. "Homer, I'm going to give the pig a buttermilk bath." "A what?" said Mr. Zuckerman. "A buttermilk bath. My grandmother used to bathe her pig in buttermilk when it got dirty. I just remembered." "But Wilbur's not dirty," said Mr. Zuckerman. "Oh, he is. He's filthy behind the ears." "He lays in clean straw," said Mr. Zuckerman. "Well, he's dirty and he's going to have a bath." So Mr. Zuckerman sat down and he ate a donut. His wife went to the woodshed, and when she returned, she had on rubber boots, an old raincoat, and she carried a bucket of buttermilk and a small wooden paddle. "Edith, you're crazy," said Zuckerman. She paid no attention to him. Together they walked to the pig pen, and Mrs. Zuckerman wasted no time. She climbed in with Wilbur and went to work. Dipping her paddle in the buttermilk, she rubbed it all over him. The geese gathered around to see the fun, and the sheep and the lambs, and even Templeton poked his head out to watch Wilbur get a buttermilk bath. Charlotte got so interested she lowered herself on a drag line so she could see better. Wilbur stood still with his eyes closed. He could feel the buttermilk trickling down his sides. He opened his mouth and he got to taste some. It was delicious. He felt radiant and happy. When Mrs. Zuckerman got through and rubbed him dry, he was the cleanest, prettiest pig that you ever saw. He was pure white and pink around the ears and snout, as smooth as silk. The Zuckermans went to change into their best clothes, and Lurvy went to shave and put on his plaid shirt and his purple necktie. The animals were left to themselves in the barn. The 7 goslings paraded around and around their mother. "Please, please, please, take us to the fair," said a gosling. "Please, please, 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 please." They made quite a racket. "Children," snapped the goose, "we're staying quietly, idly at home. Only Wilbur, Ilber is going to the fair." And just then Charlotte interrupted. "I shall go too," she said. "I have decided to go with Wilbur. He might need me. We can't tell what may happen at the fairground. Someone's got to go. Someone who knows how to write, and I think Templeton better come too. I might need somebody to run errands and do general work." "I'm staying right here," grumbled the rat. "I haven't the slightest interest in fairs." "That's because you've never been to one," said the sheep. "The fair is a rat's paradise. Everyone spills food at a fair. A rat could creep around at night and have a feast. In the horse barn, you're going to find oats and all kinds of things that the horses have spilled. And in the trampled fields, you're going to find old discarded lunch boxes with foul remains of peanut butter sandwiches, hard-boiled eggs, cracker crumbs, bits of donuts, and particles of cheese. And in the hard park dirt of the midway, after the glaring lights are out and the people have gone home to bed, you're going to find a treasure of popcorn fragments, frozen custard dripplings, candied apples abandoned by tired children, sugar fluff crystals, salted almonds, popsicles, partially gnawed ice cream cones, and the wooden sticks of lollipops. Everywhere is a loot for a rat, in the tents and the booths and the haylofts. Why, a fair has enough disgusting leftover food to satisfy a whole army of rats. Templeton's eyes were blazing. "Is that true?" he asked. "Is this appetizing yarn of yours true? I like living high, and what you say tempts me." "It is true," said the old sheep. "Go to the fair, Templeton. You will find the conditions at the fair surpass your wildest dreams. Buckets with sour mash sticking to 'em, tin cans with particles of tuna fish, greasy paper bags stuffed with rotten—" "That's enough," cried Templeton. "Don't tell me more. I'm going." "Good," said Charlotte, winking at the old sheep. "Now then, there is no time to be lost. Wilbur will soon be put into a crate. Templeton and I have to get in the crate right now and hide ourselves." The rat didn't waste a minute. He scampered over to the crate, crawled between the slats, and pulled straw over him so he was hidden from sight. "All right," said Charlotte, "I'm next." She sailed into the air, let out a drag line, and dropped gently to the ground. Then she climbed the side of the crate and hid herself inside a knothole in the top board. The old sheep went, "What a cargo!" "The sign ought to say Zuckerman's famous pig and the 2 stowaways." "Look out, the people are coming. Cheese it, said the gander. The big truck with Mr. Arable at the wheel backed slowly toward the barnyard, and Lurvy and Mr. Zuckerman walked alongside. Fern and Avery were standing in the body of the truck, hanging onto the sideboards. "Listen to me," said the old sheep to Wilbur. "When they open the crate and try to put you in, struggle. Don't go without a tussle. Pigs always resist when they're being loaded." "If I struggle, I'll get dirty," said Wilbur. "Never mind that. Do as I say. Struggle. If you were to walk into that crate without resisting, Zuckerman might think that you were bewitched and he'd be scared to go to the fair." Templeton poked his head up through the straw. "Struggle if you must," he said, "but kindly remember that I'm hiding down here in the crate and I don't want to get stepped on or kicked in the face, or crushed in any way, or squashed, or buffeted about, or bruised, or lacerated, or scarred. Just watch what you're doing, Mr. Radiant, when they get shoving you in." "Be quiet, Templeton," said the sheep. "Pull in your head. They're coming. Look radiant, Wilbur. Lay low, Charlotte. Talk it up, geese." The truck backed slowly to the pig pen and stopped. Mr. Arable cut the motor, got out, walked around the rear of the truck, and lowered the tailgate. The geese cheered. Mrs. Arable got out of the truck, and Fern and Avery jumped to the ground. Mrs. Zuckerman came walking down from the house, and everyone lined up at the fence for a moment to admire Wilbur and his beautiful green crate. Nobody realized that the crate already contained a rat and a spider. "That's some pig," said Mrs. Arable. "He's terrific," said Lurvy. "He's radiant," said Fern, remembering the day he was born. "Well," said Mrs. Zuckerman, "he's clean anyway. The buttermilk certainly helped." Mr. Arable studied Wilbur carefully. "Yes, he is a wonderful pig," he said. "It's hard to believe he was the runt of the litter. You're going to get some extra good ham and bacon, Homer, when it comes to kill that pig." Oh, Wilbur heard those words and his heart almost stopped. "I think I'm going to faint," he said to the sheep. "Kneel down," whispered the old sheep. "Let the blood rush to your head." So Wilbur sank to his knees, all his radiance gone and his eyes closed. "Look," screamed Fern, "he's fading away." "Hey, watch me," cried Avery, crawling on all fours into the crate. I'm a pig." Avery's foot touched Templeton under the straw. "What a mess," thought the rat. "What fantastic creatures boys are. Why did I let myself in for this?" The geese saw Avery in the crate and cheered. "Avery, you get out of that crate this instant," commanded his mother. "What do you think you are?" "I'm a pig," said Avery. "Oink, oink, oink." "The truck is rolling away, Papa," said Fern. The truck, with nobody at the wheel, had started to go downhill, and Mr. Arable dashed to the driver's seat and pulled on the emergency brake, and the truck stopped. The geese cheered. Charlotte crouched and made herself as small as possible in the knothole so Avery wouldn't see her. "Come out at once," cried Mrs. Arble. Avery crawled out of the crate, and he made faces at Wilbur, and Wilbur fainted away. "The pig has passed out," said Mrs. Zuckerman. "Throw water on him." The geese cheered. Lurvy ran for a pail of water. Fern climbed into the pen and knelt by Wilbur's side. "It's just sunstroke," said Mrs. Zuckerman. "The heat's too much for him." "Maybe he's dead," said Avery. "Come out of that pig pen immediately," cried Mrs. Arble. Avery obeyed his mother and climbed into the back of the truck so he could see better. Lurvy returned with cold water and poured it on Wilbur. "Throw some on me," said Avery. "I'm hot too." "Oh, keep quiet," hollered Fern. "Keep quiet," her eyes brimming with tears. Wilbur felt the cold water and he came to. He rose slowly to his feet and the geese cheered. "He's up," said Mr. Arble. "I guess there's nothing wrong with him." "I'm hungry," said Avery. "I want a candied apple." "Wilbur's all right now," said Fern. "We can start. I want to take a ride on the Ferris wheel." So Mr. Zuckerman and Mr. Arble and Lurvy grabbed the pig and pushed him head first toward the crate, and Wilbur began to struggle. The harder they pushed, the more he held back. Avery jumped down and he joined the men, and Wilbur kicked and thrashed and grunted. "There's nothing wrong with this pig," said Mr. Zuckerman. "All together now, boys. Shove!" And with a final heave, they jammed him into the crate. The geese cheered. Lurvy nailed boards across the ends so he couldn't back out. And then, using all their strength, the men picked up the crate and put it in the truck. They didn't know that under the straw was a rat, and that inside the knothole was a big gray spider. They only saw our pig. "Everybody in," called Mr. Arble. They started the motor. The ladies climbed in beside him. Mr. Zuckerman and Lurvy and Fern and Avery rode in the back, hanging on to the sideboards. The truck began to move ahead. The geese cheered. The children answered their cheer. And away everybody went to the fair. And that's where we're going to end for tonight. And we'll pick this book up again tomorrow night. Have a good night's sleep. I'll see you tomorrow.